Alright, so chapter 3, section 3 is dealing with the second derivative, more the second derivative test. And the second derivative test does the same thing that the first derivative test does. It looks at finding your mins and maxes. It just does it differently. In this section, they also talk about the inflection point. We'll look at that in number 4. The point of diminishing returns is in business another way to call it an inflection point. So the first derivative, when you set it equal to 0, you get critical points. If you take the second derivative and set it equal to 0, you get inflection points. Let's go to Desmos graph, kind of explore that for a second. So if I have a picture that looks like this, so here's where my critical points are when the first derivative is set equal to 0. Around here, somewhere in the middle, right, I change from concave down to concave up. Where that occurs is your inflection point. So that's going to be when your second derivative is equal to 0. So I could find that by doing something that we've done previously. So there's my first derivative graph. Don't really need it. Looking for my second derivative graph. So when this thing equals 0 is negative 1 1/3. So I could put f of negative 4/3. So negative 4/3 comma f of negative 4/3. That should give me my point of diminishing returns if I was looking at a business model, or my inflection point. This is the point where I change concavity. So I'm concave down, and then right here I turn concave up. But that's when your second derivative is equal to 0, which ours is at negative 4/3. But looking at a couple problems, looking at number 2, find all relative extrema of the function, use the second derivative test when applicable. So I'm going to do a supplement video on this one to show if I'm going to use the second derivative test to find where this thing changes concavity. We could visually get a quick graph of this one to show where it changes concavity, or maybe, oh, this one doesn't change concavity. That's always something good to know. So maybe I won't do number 2. Maybe I'll look at number 3. This is something that would probably be easier, more easily found. So if this is my, oh, and that's very similar to what I just had. But we would take the second derivative, set it equal to 0, and we'd find the inflection point somewhere around here. That's where it changes concavity. And number 4, you're asked to find this, but again, this is just a find the second derivative, set it equal to 0. And that should be that we're going to find that x value, and then you would take your x value and plug it back into your original function to find your point of diminishing return, or official inflection point. So with these, we're taking the second derivative, set it equal to 0 to help us find inflection points. But I'll do number how about I do number 1 to find the min and the max using the second derivative test. Both first derivative test and second derivative test are made to find mins and maxes. That's just how they do it. So, but on both of them, we will use that inflection point value, that x, to help us do it.